Welcome, guys. Welcome back. Hopefully, this went smoothly. Hopefully, you guys can hear me and see my charts okay. Let me know in the chat just because this is the first time of streaming on the new channel here, you guys. Thumbs up if you do appreciate these live streams. Thumbs up for the new channel. Subscribe to the new channel if you haven't. Guys, moving forward at the oh, that isn't actually looking full screen. Let's see. Sorry, just kind of still figuring out this new channel here. So it's looking like you are only getting a part of my screen. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. And let's just see if that helps things out here. I think you should have full screen in just a second here, you guys. I believe you should hear me. I see my microphone lighting up and everything. So, guys, again, just like I just said over at the Financial Summit, congrats on the new channel. Thank you so much. Oh, there we go. Looks like you guys got full screen. Yeah, guys, like I was just saying on the Financial Summit, yeah, there's a lot of red flags in the chart. Sounds fine. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Longs are cooked too. That could be a rough one. You guys know that I was talking previously, just last week and over at Financial Summit, that I was still in a handful of running long positions. One of the great things that happened with that is that, yeah, obviously most of those longs got stopped out. Most of them I only had about a quarter still running because I pay myself on the way. But that's one reason why I love to let positions run, because that whole little downtrend, that absolute nuke we had over the last couple days, it made it easy to not desperately try and long anything because I knew that I had nice positions running. I mean, I was away anyways. I didn't really have much phone reception. Even I could barely look at the charts the last few days. But it was a nice position to be in, knowing that I still had some longs running, and worst case, they were going to get stopped out at break even. Aster is the one exception, absolutely crushing longs on that thing. It's kind of doing its own thing. But that being said, that one's extremely volatile too. So I do want to take a look at Bitcoin on several different time frames. I want to look more in depth at the Bitcoin dominance. I want to take a look at a good handful of altcoins, the current trades that I am in, and all that sort of stuff, you guys. But thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for checking out my new channel. Again, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. It will do wonders for the algorithm for such a new channel like this. So much appreciated, you guys. But yeah, basically, Bitcoin, like I said, I mean, I was targeting much higher levels. Unfortunately, hasn't happened yet. We're going to have to see if we even end up reaching my 120K bullish target. I still do have a quarter of that long position on Bitcoin running. I took this on September 1st. I ended up doing a live stream with you guys about 10 minutes or so after I took that position, kind of explaining why. Those of you in my Telegram, I also told you guys live when I ended up taking that long position. I still have a chunk of that running, you guys, because again, it's such a nice stress-free position to be in. Yeah, I could have locked in more profits when I saw us lose this support. Absolutely could have. But you know what? I didn't really feel safe trying to find new positions at this time because I think we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. We're kind of in the middle of a range right now. So yeah, just to kind of go over, what are the good things about this chart? What are the bad? The good things are that, we did end up breaking the downtrend we had. Right. Obviously, we lost our uptrend when we broke this support here. But since then, and one of the reasons why I went long is we had a couple of lower low. Technically, this one was very slightly lower. So whether you want to say that we broke our lower high here, or even making it more obvious, a level like this, right? Because we had our low, a lower low. The highest point between the two is my confirmed lower high on the trend. And we broke that. Yeah, I would have absolutely loved to see us just moon right to 100K or sorry, 120K USD rather, and higher, because those are at the end of the day, those are my target, not actually for the end of the day, mind you. But yeah, basically I'm targeting for these levels up here because since we broke the midterm time frame downtrend, that's where I start to look at where did this downtrend start? Where did the bigger downtrend start? And that's our high up here. So that's why I have a Fibonacci pulled from our highs, our all-time highs, to where we bottomed at the start of the month, basically, where I took that long. So basically pulling a Fibonacci from top to bottom rather than bottom to top because I'm looking for resistance, right? One thing that I did mention to watch for as a sign of weakness a little bit early, and unfortunately it happened, and it didn't really happen in a great spot to take advantage of. But the MDX Trendmaster actually is giving a bit of a warning that there could be a shift in trend. I did not want to see this, but it is what it is. The market makers, the charts, the market, they don't always care what I think or how I feel. And so at this point, we printed a much lower sell signal, right? Since we lost that uptrend, printed a buy signal, a lower buy signal. But more recently, we actually printed that lower sell signal as well. That is a big red flag to me, as this indicator is good at basically signaling the trend, but it's not so much these signals on their own that I take all too serious. Those of you who do join these live streams on a regular basis, those of you who may have these MDX Algo indicators, those of you who are in my Telegram group, you know I love looking at the Trendmaster for seeing which direction these are trending. So rather than each signal on its own, like the sell signal, for example, I'm giving it more credit because it's a lower sell signal after a lower buy signal. Something worth mentioning there, that is a big red flag. Honestly, that is, for me and the strategies I like to use, that is the biggest red flag that I have on the long-term trend for Bitcoin right now. I'm taking that very serious. I was looking at taking a hedge short had we got the signal in a little bit of a better position, because unfortunately that signal printed after we already got this big drop. So at this point, I would want to see some sort of a bounce up to retest this, the resistance of this indicator, rather than just FOMOing short late after the move may have already happened, right? So at this point, yeah, that signal printed a little bit late. So if it would have printed right here when we were just trading sideways in a nice tight consolidation, that would have been a great time to take some sort of a head short based off the signal. But unfortunately, once again, it doesn't always play out perfect. So never got that nice, easy opportunity, basically. So the 4 hour, yeah, that's the Trendmaster. That's a big red flag for me, you guys. That's a big warning that the more macro or at least midterm trend could be shifting to the downside. But that being said, when I said not all hope is lost on this chart yet, notice I do have a purple box and a green box down here. So I'm just going to delete the resistance fibs, and I want to print a more bullish chart opportunity here, which may play out. And that's basically, since I had mentioned this was a low, this is our lower low, that's our lower high, and we ended up breaking that resistance. We broke that confirmed lower high on the trend. If this were a 5-minute chart, just like the Aster long that I took and mentioned in the Telegram this morning, if this were a 5-minute chart, basically anything on a lower time frame, you know, after we got this break in structure, I wouldn't be looking to FOMO long into a breakout. Basically, I would be looking for that pullback to a Stuber fib or swing fail or double bottom kind of a thing, liquidity grab, whatever you want to call it. So just going from, in that case, since that the midterm downtrend was broken, now I'm going to look for, okay, if we pull back to support, where can I expect support to start stepping back in? And that being said, guys, pulling a fib from, like I said before, I was looking for resistance. I pulled top to bottom. Now I'm looking for potential support. So I'm actually pulling bottom to top. So at this point, this is where I say things are a little bit sketchy right now, because we're kind of in the middle of a range, if you ask me, because we already lost the micro support And at that point, I would expect us to end up eventually coming back down to our range support, because we never did test the 786, 886, the 115. We never really retested any of this support since we ended this little uptrend here. So I'm still hopeful that the bulls will show signs of life if we end up trading down to our midterm support levels on the 4-hour. But at this point, I mean, we're just going to have to see what happens, basically. I'm not all too bearish until we lose that, but just on the midterm, it's just because I'm not bearish doesn't mean that I'm bullish right at this level. I have a feeling we're going to end up testing lower. And if not, I would at least want to see something a little more concrete, just a little more evidence on a lower time frame that we're actually going to get an early reversal, basically. So if I really, actually, first I want to zoom out a little bit, because another thing not looking so bad for Bitcoin is the weekly trend. I mean, this chart, we're still holding our buy trend, this pink moving average here, basically, which is currently down all the way at around 102,000 US dollars, right down to about 96, 97,000 US dollars would be support on that indicator. So I mean, even if we take a further tumble, it doesn't mean that the cycle is necessarily over. It absolutely could be. Again, nobody knows for sure. We're just playing our probabilities, taking our best educated guess. But at this point, the macro time frame, the weekly, still has this beautiful trend. If we end up dropping below 100K, I'm going to start having my concerns. But really, if we start dropping below 98K, I am going to have very serious concerns about the health of this market. But we'll have to see what happens. Obviously, the shorter time frames are going to flip first, and then the midterm, and then the long term. So right now, midterm's kind of in the middle of nowhere. If we go over to the short term, I do want to mention this because it's very possible we're finding support here, because that does happen often, basically where we end up getting some sort of capitulation. I know this isn't actual capitulation because it's a 5-minute, but that's a very big couple of candles here on the 5-minute. And specifically the last one that ended this little pullback here is we got this big wick on the bottom, and we filled most of that wick, right? We came right down, filled most of it, basically 90% of it, whatever. So it's very possible that at this point this was just a bit of a liquidity grab. We're going, trying to trade higher, get a retest and bouncing again. I do like to see that we're seeing signs of strength from the bulls in that aspect. One thing to consider is, you guys know that most of my trading is based on Fibonacci setups, specifically the Stuber fibs or swing fails. Unfortunately, although this would have played out if you were playing this as a Stuber fib, it wasn't actually an official Stuber fib. So notice we did come down to the 786, 886, filled it perfectly, and we hit the first target. Honestly, I would even consider that very, very close to the second target, depending how much you front run your targets by. But a very nice reaction off that. However, you guys, this isn't an actual Stuber because we never broke a confirmed lower high. If this would have went down lower and then we went up to this level, I would have actually felt more bullish on it, because at that point we would have had a low and a lower low. Therefore, we would have had a confirmed lower high that would have been broken. But at this point, that's not the case, right? We have this low. We don't have a lower low before that. In fact, this would have been our low. This is our lower low. And that means the highest point between the two is way up here. So even on the 5-minute downtrend, the confirmed lower high on the 5-minute downtrend is way up at around 114.6K. So that's actually quite a ways away. That's a couple thousand US dollars above us at this point. So we could continue to climb higher without even necessarily having bullish structure, right? So something to watch for there. But yeah, nice to see some signs of life, but it's just risky, especially if you're looking at more of a midterm trade setup or a swing setup. In that case, I like looking for, either shorting resistance of a range or longing support of a range. So right now we're basically right in the middle of a range. And that just makes it a little tricky when looking for positions. Like I said, unless you're scalping, if you're looking at shorter time frames, you have a setup in here that you like playing and it works out, fantastic. But at this point, just the midterm, it's a little uncertain at this point. The Bitcoin dominance, you guys, before I take a look at altcoins, like I had mentioned, the Bitcoin dominance has been climbing a little bit. This is a weekly chart. So, I mean, these candles, this green candle is a lot bigger than it looks because it is a weekly candle. However, that being said, this trend still doesn't look so bad, right? This fib pull that I have, this massive range that I have pulled here is over 4 years of data. So at this point, the fact that we get a little bounce like that with the Bitcoin dominance, naturally that means that especially altcoins, but even Bitcoin, Bitcoin dominance climbing, generally speaking, the market is pulling back. But even at this point, even if this does bounce a little bit higher, notice that the trend to the downside is still quite strong. And if we were treating this like any typical Stuber fib, technically the Bitcoin dominance has not even hit my first target yet. It has not hit my 0.5 target. It definitely hasn't hit my 214 target. It may take a while to play out because, again, this is a weekly chart. These are weekly candles, so it would take a long time to play out. But I still think that even if we end up bouncing, it would make a lot of sense that either, I mean, one possible scenario is we already got a little bit of a swing fail, right? Because technically we dropped a little below this. So low, lower, low, lower, high. Very, very micro analyzing there, but on a longer time frame. But if we're getting this little swing fail here, it's absolutely possible that we get rejected off this red line here just because it's my confirmed lower high on the weekly trend here. So if we end up seeing this push back down to the downside, that would just be great confirmation to me that the especially the altcoin market, but the market in general is actually in pretty good shape. So we're going to have to see how that ends up playing out. The trend master, this is another beautiful thing, is that even though it's still a buy signal, technically, we lost that support quite a while ago. So I would love to see that end up flipping into a sell signal, which would then, in my opinion, start pushing us towards my first and hopefully the second target. That would just be so beautiful for the altcoin market. I do just want to catch up on the chat, just make sure that everything is still going good. Once again, guys, if you could just do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. This is my new YouTube channel. By the end of the month, I will be streaming here full time. But for the first few streams, going to be starting over at Financial Summit and then bringing my streams over here just so that people know where to find me, kind of a thing. But yeah, thank you so much for being here with me, guys. Like I said, the more thumbs up, the more subscriptions, all that sort of stuff. It'll really help the algorithm and help this channel take off. So love doing these streams with you guys. Thank you for being here with me. But yeah, let me just check the chat a little bit. Good to see a bunch of familiar faces. So you guys obviously got the memo. Love to see it. All right. Excellent question, Cali Trader. Are you going to have a new trading group? And are you taking the old videos down from Tone's channel? I am behind it. So no, actually the trading group is going to be the same. Everything is still the same with my Telegram channel. Still have the same partnership with BloFin, still have the same partnership with the Financial Summit. They just basically started my own YouTube channel for me, just where it's going to be focused on trading anything crypto, right? No, not just Bitcoin, looking at the degen stuff, looking at altcoins and meme coins and leverage trading in general, rather than just long-term holds and what the overall trend is. I will be focused on, just like before, you know, teaching some of my trade strategies, just trading crypto in general. I don't care what the asset is, basically, as long as it's volatile and we can trade it. But no, the channel will stay the same. Nothing has to be changed. You don't have to do anything if you're signed up under me with BloFin and in my Telegram channel, anything like that. It'll all be the same. Hurley, good to see you, my friend. Limit orders set for 109.5K. Yep, I had a feeling that's what you were looking for. Beautiful there. Yeah, I would be interested. I might wait to see what the lower time frames do when we get down to that level. But if I was looking for a swing trade setup, I would be looking at laddering into something like this, basically laddering in just above my 786, above my 886, and then laddering into my swing fail pocket. Sorry, one sec. Sorry, guys, I got a scratchy throat, bit of a cough, bit of a head cold in general, but I was excited to do my first stream on this channel, so here I am. Yeah, Hurley, I can see what you're looking for there. And honestly, that's one of those things, right? Where, you know, the fact that we got that lower sell signal on the Trendmaster, it is a big red flag to me. But that being said, there is still potential support down here, right? So as long as you're laddering in, kind of a thing, the way I like to ladder in, at least the 786, like I said, 886, just kind of laddering in through this whole zone here. Basically, my average entry, I would be aiming for basically where my current average entry is, and then having a nice tight stop loss, basically. Because if that was the case, our invalidation is just below the 115 a little bit. And if we end up getting that, basically that reaction and retesting the opposite side of the range, that's where you're getting closer to a 5-to-1 risk reward setup. If you really want to play your risk tight, you could even wait and see if we happen to get a test into this fib pocket between the 1 and the 115 fib. So basically between 107.3 thousand down to 105.6 thousand. If we end up testing in there, that's where you can get into an even much tighter risk reward setup, right? That's where you can start targeting those setups that are closer to a 10-to-1 risk reward setup. But obviously that's those tend to happen less often, but the risk reward is much greater. So yeah, less risk involved waiting for the lower prices just because your stop loss is that much tighter, right? But yeah, all in all, I mean, this support is technically support until it's broken. So that's kind of, I agree with you, around 109.5 thousand US dollars is where I would start to be looking for laddering into a swing long position, something around there. Brian says, I remember we talked about the measured move from the cup and handle on the weekly for BTC been reached with an all-time high before the halving as well. Would you entertain the idea of the height bin? Start of the bear from now? I mean, honestly, I have mixed feelings about the long-term trend right now, you guys. A big thing for me right now is timing. Another big thing for me is the whole cut interest rates, which we were all waiting for all of 2025. You know, basically since Trump got into office, there has been talks of rate cuts and the money printer turning back on and all that sort of stuff. And everybody has been positioning themselves, assuming that was going to be a thing. So at the time when it finally happens, typically it's bullish for the market if rates are cut and money starts printing. But if everyone was already positioned for that and, you know, just basically it's priced in, right? It not necessarily. And guys, I want you to understand, I say this all the time. I am not a fundamental guy. I like to draw charts and then trade them, keep it very simple. But that being said, it was something on my mind that it just seems almost too easy that everyone was promised that it's going to be free money when those rates get cut. We got that immediate little pump, and now we're seeing a bit of an aggressive dump. Obviously, on the longer time frame, it's still minor, but you know, it spooked a lot of people in the last couple days, and you know, it's something to consider. There is some of those red flags, right? On top of not just the rate cuts, but where we are in the market cycle. If you go from market cycle low to where we currently are. So first of all, we made it over a 600% climb to the upside. So Bitcoin really doesn't owe us anything. But more importantly, from a timings perspective, and I'm normally not a time analyst. However, in this case, it is something to at least acknowledge, in my opinion, is that we are from our market low to where we are right now. It's been about 150 weeks. if I go to our previous cycle here, our bear market low to where we topped out, it was approximately 153 weeks or 152, somewhere in there. This one might have been slightly off. I think there was one that was slightly off, but no, again, 150 bars from bear market low to bull market top. So guys, that seems to be a common theme. One thing to consider is I don't know if the 4-year cycle is going to play out the exact same this cycle. I mean, when gold started getting ETFs, I basically went into an extended bull market. I believe it lasted 8 or 10 years. I think it was about 8. So basically a double cycle. So at this point, the fact that Bitcoin has been climbing so slowly and it has been building support along the way, even right here, right where we're trading right now, if we end up dumping a little bit, notice that we still have this green line here. That would basically be the higher low on this little trend, right? Because this is where we paused last on our uptrend, went a little higher. If we come back here, we would just be retesting support of the trend basically. But again, that 150 week cycle, it does give me a little bit of concern. Like you said, there was the cup and handle measured move. There's a lot of things going. Also, the sell the news event with the rate cuts. There's a lot of potential things that could be lining up that are, a little bit of red flags for the market. But we'll have to see. I still want to, even if Bitcoin has topped, I still have a feeling that it would end up basically doing some sort of a distribution range where it would trade sideways in a bigger range. And this is just a theory at this point. I have no clue if this is actually going to happen, but I would love to see Bitcoin end up getting into a bigger range of trading sideways. That would give the Bitcoin dominance more time to end up starting running towards its fib targets, which would be, again, with Bitcoin basically trading sideways near all-time highs, with Bitcoin dominance dropping off a cliff. With market cycles in general, usually Bitcoin tops first, and then as it trades sideways a little bit at the end of the cycle, that's when altcoins really pop off. So at this point, I still believe that there's going to be a bigger rally for a lot of altcoins. I think it'll be coin specific. I think a lot of them will never recover, but I think there's still some hopium out there for a lot of the major altcoins. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting next month or two. I personally think that the start of the month is just kind of giving us that little bit of a shakeout, and then we're going to climb higher into October, basically. Now, I don't know if that's Bitcoin. I'm thinking more so altcoins. I've been more focused on altcoins for the last couple of months for exactly what I was just talking about, basically. But I really feel like the end of the month will still end up being bullish, but we're going to have to see, right? At this point, I mean, I'm not just YOLOing into a long right now, just assuming that's the case, because I still need to wait for those proper setups. Ethereum at this point, I did have the rest of my position that was taken from the 786 back here. Hit my first couple of targets, ended up getting stopped out at break even on the rest, and honestly still doesn't even look that bad. Notice that we tagged into my green box here just very briefly, and so far we are climbing from there. So if we're looking at this as our high, higher low, basically we just got a little swing fail, liquidity grab, whatever you want to call it, at our double bottom level. And so far we are seeing a little bit of a bounce from there. So on the 4 hour, once again, I don't think all hope is lost. It's just that there's starting to be some red flags, especially more so with Bitcoin. And obviously when Bitcoin dumps, I mean, guys, as I talk about being more bullish on altcoins than Bitcoin right now, understand that if Bitcoin does dump, however, altcoins are typically going to dump more aggressively. They are not immune to that, even if it's this phase of the cycle where I believe that they are going to be more bullish overall. I'm more so saying that, if the market dumps like it has, altcoins are going to dump more aggressively than Bitcoin. However, when Bitcoin finds its footing, when the market in general starts finding support, that's where we're going to see altcoins really react violently and get a very strong bounce. At least that's what I'm hoping for right now. And that's why I'm still focused on trading altcoins at this point. But it's something to watch for anyways. As I mentioned, Solana finally hit my $250 target. actually slightly higher, closer to 252, 253. But guys, this is exactly, I was calling for this when Solana was down around $160. Basically, just the fact that once again, just like what I was talking about with Bitcoin on the 4 hour, right? Here we had a low, we had a lower low. That was our confirmed lower high on the trend. We ended up breaking that. So since we broke the midterm trend, well, where did that downtrend begin? That was up here at our all-time highs. So pulling a fib top to bottom there, I was just assuming that since we broke our midterm resistance, that we would go test our macro resistance. And notice so far, we got a perfect rejection off that 786. And as I was talking about with Bitcoin kind of being in the middle of a range right now, I would say the same thing with a lot of altcoins, because even just looking at Solana right now, I haven't even dove into it in the last few days. Like I said, I was kind of away from the charts without much reception. However, just looking at this, if we were looking at this as a typical bearish Stuber setup, you would have had your 786 entry, and we have not even hit the 0.5 fib target yet. Now, we don't have to. We could absolutely just moon from here and say that's a failed Stuber setup. Yeah, whatever it is, what it is. I'm not shorting it or anything at this time yet. But yeah, I would still really expect us to drop a little bit further and start hitting some of those targets. I'm hoping we just end up hitting that first target at the 0.5 fib and then bouncing, or even just slightly lower, let's say to this support level that I have mapped out here. Yeah, it's even possible we hit the second Stuber target, but that would be all the way down around 139 US dollars. A very significant drop from here. But basically the reasoning for that 214 fib there, like I said, I'm looking for resistance because I'm pulled top to bottom. But let's just look, if this little rally to the, I shouldn't say little, if this rally since 95 US dollars is actually going to retrace at this point and get a full on rejection, I would pull a fib from our bottom there to where we've topped currently. And notice that 214 fib is just front running my bullish 786 a little bit. So if we do end up pulling back significantly, that's where I'd be starting to look for a much bigger Stuber fib setup down here, which is basically starting around 130 US dollars. That is a very far way away at this point. I'm hoping that we don't see that. But you know what? Again, the market doesn't necessarily care what I want, and we will see what happens. One other thing I was looking for, that would be the reason for this purple line here. If I bring up the Trendmaster indicator, this is a strategy that was absolutely printing for me this month, but basically mixing my Stuber fibs with the MDX Trendmaster. So basically looking at, hey, at this point, we have sell signals trending higher and we have buy signals trending higher. Our most recent buy signal support came in right around 176 US dollars. So at that point, as long as we hold that on the 4 hour, it's still looking like a valid uptrend to me. So if that's going to be the case, I would be willing to pull a Fibonacci from that support level up to where we have currently topped out at the macro 786. So if that's the case, then our support basically runs from 193 US dollars down to 165 or 164 US dollars, basically from the 786 down to the 115 fib. So yeah, obviously things are quite risky right now, no matter how you look at it. There is a lot of volatility happening right now. And if you are trading the larger timeframes like this, those ranges are going to be quite large. Those invalidations are going to be, they're going to hit pretty heavy. And that's where you have to consider if you're looking at things with a bigger range, or just things that are insanely volatile, like Aster, for example. That's where you need to, before you enter a position, you need to really find out approximately what kind of a percentage your invalidation is, right? So if I'm laddering into a fib position, something like this, I'm hoping to get my average entry basically somewhere in here, just above the 1. And basically from, and this is ballparking it just at a quick glance, but basically my average entry somewhere down here to the invalidation, that's almost a 10% move to the downside. So that's where if you use 10x leverage, invalidation is actually getting liquidated pretty much. So just understand, anytime you're going to take a trade setup, always understand what worst case scenario is. Always understand how far your invalidation is. And a perfect example, like I was just saying, is Aster. This was a 10x trade from my purple dotted line here. I took it this morning. Like I said, I even shared it in real time in my Telegram channel. Actually, speaking of that, here, I'll get this up for you. This is the new QR code here, new logo and everything. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. For those of you who are interested in seeing more examples, how I pull fibs, how I look at market structure, some of my trade setup ideas and theories, just my overall thoughts on the markets, do yourselves a favor, scan that QR code. But like I said, even this morning, I was looking at something similar. I did mention that, again, be careful trading this, as it's way more volatile than it looks, because realistically, this range didn't look like much. But again, if we would have got invalidated there, that's basically a liquidation. And like I said, I'm at 10x leverage. However, I understand my position sizing. So I started with smaller positions, and I got so close to hitting another entry here. I think I was off by like 30 cents or something, but I actually ended up, I think I had 3 or 4 more entries here, something like this. So I was going to bring that average entry significantly down. So that's where, just again, I understood that, hey, if I had just entered along the 786 with 10x leverage, just assuming that's a fairly small range, whatever, I could have got liquidated somewhere in my support. But as I'm laddering into my position, I'm actually driving my average entry down closer to my invalidation. Unfortunately, that being said, I never hit my last 3 entries, so my position is a little smaller than I was hoping if it would have entered, got the full thing. But you know what? Still beautiful. Like I said, hit my first 2 take profits, 77 and 164% approximately for those. Absolutely beautiful. And it's still trying to climb. We'll see what happens here. Trendmaster still currently holding this buy trend here. So this is one of those times we have mixed signals on the Trendmaster right now, because we actually printed a lower buy signal, but we still have higher sell signals. So a little bit of mixed signals there. Not really taking each signal at that point on its own all too serious. However, at this point, being the Stuber fib did play out and then we got a buy signal, I mean, I love to see that we're still holding the support of this trend. I'm hoping it just keeps pushing us higher. And if not, the rest of my position gets stopped at break even, made some nice profits on the first half of the position. So be it, right? Because I always play the range first, right? That's the whole point of my Fibonacci setups, is if I pull a Fibonacci like this, that means that is the range that I'm looking at playing. So I am taking profits, partial profits in that range. I'm not banking on home run trades, because if you're only willing to accept profits if it's a home run trade, you're going to have a very hard time counteracting those losses when they happen. Whereas when I do something like this, ladder into a position and ladder out of a position, it helps you keep a much more level head. That, if that home run trade does happen, at least you can catch it with part of your position, right? So that's why I love laddering into positions. I love laddering out of positions. And yeah, so far this Aster is just, well, it's something. It's been volatile as heck. The first long position I actually took was down on a Stuber fib down here. That one ended up hitting over 800% on the climb to the upside. Absolutely beautiful. But the new position's sitting pretty good right now, over 100 as well. I've been spot on this thing since 59 cents. But yeah, this one's moving quite nicely. We'll have to see what happens. Obviously, maybe that was it, right? Maybe we lost our uptrend because higher high. We lost that support. Maybe we're just in a nasty downtrend right now, and we're just going to get some sort of relief here and then push lower. Absolutely possible. That's why we pay ourselves along the way. And that's also, guys, one thing I want to mention is it's very important when you're taking trades to also set those take profits, right? If let's just say that I let this run wild and I was like, you know what, I'm going to look at my phone later and see if we happen to be around this level, I'll see how I feel then. It's very possible the price does something like this. And in that case, then you start to panic. Oh, do I bump up my stop loss and take a tiny profit? Or what do I do at that point? Rather than just letting those profit levels get hit and taking them on the spot and having a very stress-free ride from there once you start hitting those. Something like Aster for right now, since we hit my first 2 take profits, I'm going to just remove that. Just to show you here once again why I took this trade setup was because on this downtrend, here was our low. We had a lower low. That confirms this as my lower high. And since we broke that, once again, looking for that pullback to the 786, 886, or even further, right? Basically from the 786 to the 115 would be my support. But after getting that structure break, just like what I was talking about with Bitcoin, this is very familiar, right? We broke that midterm downtrend, even though this is just a 5-minute. We broke the downtrend, and then we come and retest support. Look at Bitcoin on the 4-hour. We broke that downtrend, and then we're coming back down towards support at this time. So that's why I say, yeah, the trend master has those red flags, the lower buy signal, the lower sell signal, but structure is still not looking all too bad at this point. The fact that we broke that downtrend, we're coming back down to retest support. We can drop significantly from here and still be healthy, in my opinion, for the shorter or for the midterm to long term. What's another one I wanted to look at? I want to take a look at Hype. Guys, this thing has been on an absolute mission. Maybe it needs a break. Maybe it's done. Maybe the fact that Aster is basically a direct competitor because it's another decentralized exchange. Backed by CZ of Binance, I believe, or I'm not sure exactly what his deal is with them. I know he was mentioning it, but whether it's that or it just needs a cool off, whatever. At this point, the fact that we dropped below this pink line here, not all too concerning yet because we've done that in the past where it's actually been very nice buy levels looking back in Captain Hindsight. But at this point, the fact that we still haven't dropped the blue of this indicator either, that's down at around $43.58. So as long as we're kind of holding above this level, I think that the trend of this on the daily is actually still looking quite good. If I look at the 4-hour, yeah, it's obviously a little bit more ugly, but again, it's a much higher sell signal, right? Look at this trend on the 4-hour, how often we were printing higher buy signals, right? From here, higher buy, higher buy, higher buy, higher buy, higher buy. And we haven't lost that trend at this point. And at this point, that would mean our support would be there around $42.70. So another thing to consider, just looking at Hype at this point, is I would be willing, I bet we're testing a 786 basically right now. If I look at something like this, notice where we ended up so far getting some sort of a reaction, right? We haven't hit the 0.5 fib since then or anything. However, we did see an obvious reaction off that level. And again, that's combining fibs with the trend master indicator, basically. So at this point, that 4-hour trend hasn't broke yet. If we lose that $42.50 level, I will start to have concerns about this as well. But at this point, we'll just have to see how that plays out. AVAX, basically still looking pretty good. It saw a pretty deep correction as well, but look at the buyback on this. Look at that green candle. Look how far we dropped to, and notice where it ended up finding support. So on this little push to the upside, I may have even talked about this in my last stream. I can't remember. But basically we have an order block here, right? Where's the last place that, and this is just talking about this micro trend here. Let's look at the price currently. We basically had this pause right here before shooting higher, right? So let's just make a box of our last red candle here where the bears tried to push, but we ended up just pushing higher instead. And notice with that box, that's right where we came down to that order block and just absolutely on a mission from there. How far have we pumped already? That's already a 15% bounce off of that level. So absolutely huge. AVAX has been performing quite well. Last week, I know it was a very strong performer, made some good cash off trading that one. And much like what I was talking about with Solana, reaching the macro 786, just like with Bitcoin, how I think that it's still possible it ends up hitting 120K. I still think that AVAX is in a very similar position, where as long as the market doesn't get too bloody, as long as there's not too much panic and altcoins can get a breath of fresh air in the near future, I believe that AVAX is on its way up towards about 47 US dollars, just because that's, again, where the 786 fib would be from where we started our current downtrend. It's actually possible there's resistance a little bit higher because we technically have a higher high back here. But for now, I'm just looking for closer targets. So just pulling from our last major swing level to the downside, basically pulling from that level and looking for resistance. As far as looking for meme coins, you guys, I've been quite vocal about Troll Coin. Wow, it actually got a very nice reaction since starting this stream, apparently. Basically, I was looking at this falling wedge. I actually, when I started the stream, we were below it, and I had my concerns about it. However, I can't remember who I was talking to earlier today, but I mentioned that I'm really hoping that this is one of those times where we get our fake out, reclaim this level, and then hammer through this wedge with momentum. This would be the time right now. I mean, I know that I was buying the support of this level. This is just as far as spot trading, by the way. But Troll is one of my heavier meme coins at this point, which, I mean, I was accumulating back here. So either way, it doesn't owe me anything at this point, but I really want to see this one do well. But yeah, so far, I love to see this reaction, because not only did we reclaim this falling wedge, and it's a very accurate one, right? That's the thing, is we had 1, 2, 3 perfect touch points. Even from the underside, look how well that wick respected that old support as resistance. But now we ended up reclaiming it. And look how quick we reacted once that happened. And on top of that, if we want to look at the shorter time frame, you guys, look at this. Here we have a low. Here we have a lower low. That means this is a confirmed lower high. And look where we're trying to hold above right now. That would be a great sign to me. If we can end up doing something like this and end up climbing above this and respecting that resistance as support, I think it's only a matter of time until it takes another crack at all-time highs. But we'll have to see. Cat with mask, still at support, basically at double bottom territory, looking weak, but support always looks weak until it doesn't. Just like Troll did back here. We basically traded sideways for months, and then it all of a sudden took off. So we're going to have to see. But man, I was not expecting to see this. This is a great breath of fresh air, honestly. One sec. Sorry, starting to cough. The throat's getting a little dry here. Any thoughts on the Doge chart? Hurley, I can check that for you. I know that is one that I was looking at recently. I haven't taken any trades on it recently, but it was a coin of interest. I assume it's going to look very similar to Bitcoin. Let me... Yeah, so obviously we started the uptrend where we should have on a beautiful Subert fib there. Trendmaster. So this is nice to see, right? Even though this is technically, well, not a higher buy signal, but not lower either. Actually, basically a double buy signal or double bottom buy signal. But also the fact that our lower sell signal on the trend would have been about here, and we did break that. So the downtrend from the MDX Trendmaster was broken, which is great. Right now, we're kind of in the middle of a big range here. But I love that on the daily chart, we are still trying to hold the Trendmaster support, right? We're a little below that pink line, but we're hovering above the blue part. Also, it would be several candles until it would confirm a sell signal, in my opinion. And even that, it would be a higher sell. So at that point, I would be looking for basically a higher buy signal to continue the trend. But other than that, I would be looking for basically a fib. And this would be if there's a much bigger correction, right? But I would be considering pulling a fib from there. At that point, I might honestly just consider going from the bottom of the range, though. Yeah, the daily trend, not so bad at this point. I do want to see us reclaim this. I don't really want to see this pink line flip blue and start turning into resistance. I would like to see us reclaim it relatively quickly. Let's look at the 4 hour. 4 hour, same thing. So notice we have a higher sell signal. So now I would be looking for us to find support a little bit early. And technically, this would have been our recent buy signal. So I'm going to go, that's where we would have got our lowest pivot between or before it, basically. So pulling a fib, something like this. Oh, we got so close to the 786 there. We still may, right? We still might come in and tag something like this, maybe even down into here. But basically anywhere between 22.7 and 19 cents would be fair game for support on the 4 hour. Again, I know that's a big range, but since it is a 4 hour and things are quite volatile right now, that's just how the range lines up. So nice to see that. You know, if anything, this might be a nice sign of strength. The fact that we got this little wick and, found our bottom before the 786 might be a sign of strength there. Let me zoom in a little further. Let's check out the 1 hour. I assume we'll have a lower sell up here somewhere. Yeah. So again, that's where I take that as a serious red flag from the Trendmaster, the fact that it printed a lower sell signal. Sorry, this cold is getting me here. But lower sell signal on the 1 hour, very strong warning from the Trendmaster there. So we still do have that resistance above us. So be a little bit cautious, but I wouldn't say all hope is lost. I don't like that we lost the higher buy signal, right? The fact that we lost this support in general. I don't love to see that. But again, not all hope is lost. That downward pressure, that may have been it for all I know. I want to zoom into a shorter time frame. Let's take a look at the 5 minute, really get our degen on. So this actually looks exactly like Bitcoin, right? We had our deep move to the downside. We got a very large 5 minute candle there, even a nice big wick on it. And so far we are holding that as support. However, just like what I was talking about with Bitcoin, is that there's technically not an actual Stuber fib because there hasn't been a lower high, a confirmed lower high that's been broken. Just looking at basic market structure, this was our low. This was our lower low. That means our confirmed lower high, the highest point between the two, we're looking at about right there around, well, close to 25 cents, 24.95 or whatever. But basically, the downtrend on the 5 minute isn't broken unless we break that level. Not to say we can't find support here by any means, just how the type of trade setups that I like looking for, I like to see that structure break followed by a pullback. So a little added risk, but yes, at least it's not just capitulating, right? It's trying to build some sort of structure here. It's trying to curl back up to the upside. The Trendmaster, although we printed a lower sell signal, it was really struggling to gain any sort of big momentum there. It never pushed us to new lows or anything. So even though we printed a lower buy signal, the buy signals are starting to become more frequent. I would really like to see, okay, this lower sell signal, where was our pivot there? Right about here, right around 24.3. I would like to see the bulls reclaim that because at least at that point, this sell signal would be invalidated. But yeah, not looking so bad. So far, we're still holding this buy trend, right? We got a beautiful retest of that indicator and pushing us a little bit higher. I don't know how much fuel is going to be in the tank is all, but yeah, I don't think it looks too bad, honestly. It's just kind of one of those tricky spots, just like what I was talking about with Bitcoin and basically every other coin, is that we're just kind of not really at a good support level or a good resistance level right now. Unless you start looking into the lower time frames and you have, you're looking at more so scalping, that kind of thing. But yeah, doesn't look too bad. I like I said, I think the market is still okay for now. Habu says fund strat is looking for 5,500 on Ethereum year-end target. Maybe. Honestly, I don't generally look for targets all too often unless there's price action there. That's more so why I look at fib retracements. I know you could look at Fibonacci extensions and come to some extensions that may line up there, a 1618 or something like that. I just don't typically do it. I more so look at playing the range and then letting a position run and taking nibbles from there. So I don't have anything myself that says we need to go to 5,500, but I think it totally depends where we're at in the cycle. I do think it's absolutely possible. I just don't have anything that I've been watching that specifically lines up with that. But again, the fact that we tested into my green box here and getting a nice little bit of a reaction here, I love to see that, not going to lie. And also that Bitcoin dominance, if we can get rejected here, that would just be all the more power to that theory, more fuel for that rocket. So I would love to see Ethereum above 5. That, and really, if the altcoin market is going to continue, I see no reason why it couldn't. That doesn't sound like a ridiculous target to me. I've heard a lot more ridiculous ones. That's for sure. Oh man, that troll chart. That is that's something. Love to see it. Glad I bought a little more along that support, because what's that up already? It was actually around 10 cents where I bought more. But even that is up almost 40 cents or 35% already. So much volatility in this market right now, you guys. The dump happened at 2 a.m. for BTC, Ethereum, Solana. Could have been a coordinated sale. Perhaps. It also depends where you live, I suppose. But yeah, for me, I believe it was overnight as well. Like I said, I haven't had a ton of service the last few days. Haven't been watching the charts all too closely. The little bit that I have been able to get some reception, I've been mostly looking at that Aster. That's been my printer the last few days. Brian, thanks for joining. Good to see you here once again, my friend. Take care. 5,500, a wild projection for Ethereum. I don't know if I'd say 55 is wild. Like really, if this move from where we topped out to where we bottomed out, if we would have got that move to the upside instead, I mean, we would have been closer to 6K. So really that same size move we got to the downside, all it really takes is getting that to the opposite direction. And those targets seem very reasonable all of a sudden. So it's not crazy. It's not like some of the Bitcoin or XRP targets that I've seen across social media. That's for sure. Nice. Love it. Yeah. Anyways, my friends, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. I really was just excited to get one live stream in on the new channel here. So once again, please do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to this channel. I'm really looking forward to doing all of my live streams on this channel by the end of the month. Going to be a great time just trading anything crypto. Altcoin requests are always going to be welcome, obviously. But yeah, like I said, there's a few red flags in the market. We might see some further downside, but I don't think all hope is lost yet. Just understand that things are a little bit dangerous right now. It's extremely volatile. Bitcoin, altcoins, it's all very volatile right now. And we're kind of in the middle of a big range. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now. So no matter what, just be careful, my friends. And like I mentioned, if you guys are interested in seeing more examples of my fib setups, how I pull my fibs, how I look at market structure, some of my some of my trade setup ideas, just my overall thoughts on the market and that sort of thing. Do yourselves a favor. Scan the QR code on the screen. My partners at BloFin, there's still a couple of days left on this for anybody who is signed up under me on BloFin. There is this deposit and trading volume bonus. Obviously, there's only a couple more days there, so something to consider. But if you want to take advantage of it, there it is. And yeah, just been absolutely crushing it this month in the altcoins specifically, you guys. Some very nice positions have been had. So again, if that's something that interests you, scan the QR code, get in there. With that, my friends, I'm hoping to stream either tomorrow or Wednesday. It'll very much be the same thing where I'll start over on Financial Summit. And then I will move over to this channel just until things kind of get settled. It becomes more regular. And by the end of the month, we will be streaming here at the Crypto Trading channel full time. With that, I'm out, my friends. Stay safe. Head on a swivel out there. Peace.